Chapter 111. Shizun is like a blade, you are like water. The fourth Ghost King's second palace had only one entrance, and there were guards stationed outside. Not that Moran was so dumb as to saunter in through the front door. He vaulted up onto the roof, tucked the soul-calling lantern into his jiankun pouch so its light wouldn't draw any unnecessary attention, then flitted across the roof tiles, swift as a bolt of black lightning. As grand as the second palace appeared from the street, the interior was still more massive. Courtyard after courtyard of winding corridors sprawled beneath his feet. Moran leapt to the top of one of the taller buildings and flattened himself against the dark brown tiles of the roof. From his high vantage, the second palace looked like a small town that stretched as far as the eye could see. Moran was unbearably anxious. He understood now why that man in the doorway wouldn't tell him where his Shizun had gone. He was probably afraid to tick off this Ghost King. But though Moran knew that Chuaning was here in this palace, he still had no idea what to do about it. There were at least 900 rooms here, if not 1,000. Which of them held his Shizun? Moran was like someone on the cusp of finding a treasure, both his hands and heart alike tremoring violently. Shizun, where are you? He was absorbed in these thoughts when a line of soldiers, outfitted in golden armor and battle boots, stomped around a corner, each bearing a red lantern. They marched single file from the east gate to the main walkway, and after many convoluted bends and turns, arrived at an unremarkable side room. A massive old pagoda tree stood before this room, neatly blocking Moran's line of sight. He could see only half of the courtyard, the other half hidden behind lush foliage. The ghostly soldiers entered, chaos followed. There came shouts and the sounds of tables and chairs being knocked over. Then a frightened scream pierced the air, and a disheveled woman was dragged out and tossed into the courtyard. Her clothes, already half falling off, slipped further under the rough handling, exposing large expanses of snowy skin. Trying to run? Trying to fucking run? A whip cracked viciously down on the woman's body. This was undoubtedly a punishment tool of the underworld. It could inflict searing, unbearable agony even on ghosts. The woman curled up on the ground, trembling. She looked as if she wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. She was hemmed in by soldiers on all sides. Fucking bitch! You think you can just leave the fourth king's palace? I lived a virtuous life! The woman shrieked. I did nothing wrong. Why are you doing this to me? Let me go. I want to reincarnate. I don't want to stay here. Her words turned into wails as the lash came down again. Serving the fourth king frees you from suffering the cycle of reincarnation. You sure don't know what's good for you. You didn't even choose me. Why won't you let me leave? Another lash, this time across her face. The woman wept, shivering uncontrollably, yet still tried to crawl away. Her animalistic desperation seemed to amuse the fourth Ghost King's soldiers. All of them laughed uproariously. One after another, more tributes were dragged from the side room. The leader of the soldiers raised his voice. Everyone's been working so hard, and I know how bored you all get. These here are the fourth king's leftovers. Go ahead and pick a few to play with. If any in particular strikes your fancy, come register with me, and you can take them home for yourself. Those lecherous ghosts howled and laughed as they crowded into the room to pick the comeliest goods. The woman outside wasn't spared either. She was instantly boxed in by several people under the tree. They lunged at her like a pack of starving wolves, intent on ripping her soul to pieces. The sounds of rough breathing and obscene words rose and fell inside the room. There were people crying, screaming, begging. There were also those who couldn't handle the torment and wanted out, who submitted to everything and did all they could to earn the favor. Whether in the underworld or living world, people all had the same ugliness. Moran jumped nimbly off the tall building onto the roof of the side chamber, carefully hidden under the cover of the night. If what the old man at the wonton stall told him was correct, Chuaning had come here only recently. He wouldn't have been here long enough to go through the Ghost King's selection process, so he shouldn't be among these cast-offs. But Moran couldn't help his worry. He pried a piece of the dark brown roof tiles up a sliver and stealthily peeked through the gap. The room smelled of sex, hot and steamy, and in that mess of debauchery, Moran spied a familiar face. Rongju. That prostitute he had favored in his last life, who had taken advantage of Moran's fondness to scheme against him and try to steal his cultivation. He was in there as well. Rongju was a clever thing. He knew death as well as he knew life. Many in the room below struggled desperately, refusing to give in. Amidst that hazy chaos, some called the names of their lovers in life, while others cursed and fought for their dignity. But Rongju was different. Moran knew what he was like. He loved money, and he loved his life. He no longer had a life to love, of course, but he still valued his soul and had no desire to suffer. Atop the sheets of that white, rumpled bed, the other unpicked tributes struggled and pleaded. Only Rongju had his eyes closed, mewling as softly as a kitten, as he let the soldiers manhandle him without a word of complaint. At the sight of Rongju's face flushed with arousal, Moran felt a chill pierce his heart. He thought of Chuaning. Rongju was soft and pliant. Chuaning was firm as steel. Anyone could see he was cold and hard as black iron, unbending and unyielding. In a situation like this, Rongju would flatter and fawn, would lie back and use his softness to build himself an invulnerable fortress. As for Chuaning, Moran didn't even have to think about it. He knew what that person would do. He'd sooner scatter his soul and fall into the 18 hells than allow anyone to touch him. Running water never breaks, but steel blades snap. A sudden bang startled those in the room below, as well as the one on the roof above. Moran raised his head to look toward the courtyard, and his face blanched. The woman from before, the one fierce as an inferno, had been run through by one of the soldiers. Tears slid down her cheeks as her soul gradually faded to transparency. For an instant, everything froze. Then her figure dissolved into countless specks. Her soul had scattered. The soldier who had struck her cursed as he got to his feet. There was a lash mark stark across his face. The woman had likely wrested away his ghost suppression whip and struck him with it. Fucking wench. The soldier spat. Already dead, and still so damn prissy. Pah! Stupid bitch. Moran felt like he had fallen into an icebound cave. It was as if the one he had seen just now wasn't some woman he didn't even know, but Chuaning himself, and the choice he would have made. Rongju was still tumbling in bed with those lecherous ghosts. This was a skill he had honed for survival. He would attach himself to someone sturdy, like a climbing vine, and engulf them in his softness like a trap. One by one, the tributes in the room submitted, the stench of sex heavy and nauseating. Moran didn't know how long passed before the curtain finally fell on the lurid spectacle below. Rongju really did know how to charm people. One of the soldiers pulled on his pants and immediately went to register with his leader. All that was left was for the fourth king to look it over, and the soldier would be free to bring Rongju home. These ghost soldiers were subordinates of the fourth king, and were therefore exempt from the cycle of reincarnation. Although it wasn't quite as advantageous as joining the retinue of the fourth king himself, sticking with these guys would still net Rongju a fairly comfortable life free from humiliation. Rongju was quite content with that. The soldier who'd petitioned to bring Rongju home flirted with him for a few minutes longer before leaving for guard duty. The group of fiends marched away into the distance, leaving the side room in disarray. It was dreary and cheerless, like the aftermath of a feast. Leftover wine and sentiments spilled the floor to grow cold. Rongju sat up languidly. Despite being a man, he was the most composed of the group. He dressed and groomed himself. As he gazed into the copper mirror, he felt that his face looked much too pallid in death compared to the rosy glow he'd enjoyed in life, and it didn't complement his coquettish gazes. And so, ignoring those sobbing, dazed, trembling women, Rongju cheerily straightened out his clothes, slipped on a pair of silk shoes, and strolled into the courtyard. Hell had rouge flowers as well, of an even deeper red than those that bloomed in the world of the living. He picked a cluster of the flowers, then dipped the tip of a slim finger into the sap to paint his lips and blush his cheeks. Everyone had their own priorities. Rongju had led a difficult life since birth. In his eyes, only the affluent, who stood high above the rest and never had to worry about going hungry, had the leisure to chase after things such as friendship. As for himself, he was merely some dirty thing in the mud. He couldn't afford to care about integrity and honor or whatnot. All he had was his life, and now that even that was gone, all he had was his soul. He heard a slight rustling behind him, like someone had brushed past the flowers. Rongju thought the soldier who had taken a liking to him had doubled back, so he laded his gaze with a generous helping of affection. Everything cost money, only affection was free, and cast a coy glance back. He appeared exceedingly beautiful and charming, indistinguishable between male and female, but when he saw who it was standing coldly next to the flowers, Rongju recoiled. He backed up a step, his eyes wide open and lips parted slightly, as though he had been struck by lightning. "You?" "Me," said Moran. Rongju's soft, pretty face cycled through a wild array of expressions: shock, hesitation, smugness, anger, apprehension, faint nonchalance. Finally, he settled on cool and detached. He was too accustomed to wearing a smile. Those overly intense and ferocious expressions felt heavy on his face. He didn't feel like burdening himself with them. "Fancy seeing you here, Mo Gongze." The two had parted on terrible terms last time they'd met. Rongju straightened his spine and affected an air of studied indifference. "I'm looking for someone," Moran said. Rongju scoffed. Who would have thought? A philanderer like Mo Gongze, so attached to someone even in death. Moran didn't feel like wasting his breath on Rongju. He took out the scroll and handed it over. "Have you seen him?" Rongju gave the drawing a quick glance. "Yeah, average looking." He sneered. "Which brothel is he from?" Moran frowned. "What do you mean, brothel? Just tell me if you've seen him." "Nope," Rongju said indifferently. "And I wouldn't tell you even if I had." Moran eyed him. "I'm tired now. Gotta go get some beauty rest. Please see yourself out and go back wherever you came from." "Rongju!" Moran called out to him. That slim figure paused, and his pretty face turned slightly, his expression smug. "Yes?" "I'm going to rescue him. I'll rescue you too, if you want. This place is ruthless. Surely you don't mean to stay here and hang around with those soldiers. You should go reincarnate." Rongju turned a bit more. "Easy for you to say, Mo Gongze," he said sweetly. "Sure, this place may be ruthless, but what place isn't? Little old me lived a tough 20 years up there, and honestly, it's not much different down here. Except that my patrons are now ghosts instead of humans. What does it matter if I reincarnate or not? Moran paused. If you stay here, you'll be living under a knife. Rongju burst into laughter. After a moment, he pulled himself together, still chuckling as he looked Moran over. When have I not lived under a knife? People are knives. I'm just the meat on their chopping block. If I'm lucky and get someone nice, maybe they'll pay me a little more. But if I get someone extra nice, like Mo Gongse, getting stiffed is the least of it. You stole from me, and then turned around and pretended you didn't even know me. Mo Gongse, first you stab me, then you warn me of knives. How very considerate of you.